My first question is, you have worn so many hats.
Yeah, I got a lot of hats.
Yes, is there...
I'm allergic to the sun, so I'm very pale. I don't have his technology.
But you really would like to be like a director one day.
No, I am a director.
Well, no, I know
I'm
you're
a director
but-
today.
today,
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what is something that you have always dreamed of doing?
So, I mean, my whole career, like I was saying, I mean, was completely inspired by Star Wars.
Okay.
So, ideally, what we're planning to do with the Nacelleverse is at some point shift from animation to live action.
Wow.
So it's funny, there's now, and I've been saying this for a long time, but there's now precedent for it. I know everybody's excited about Ahsoka Season 1. Another name for Ahsoka Season 1 could be Rebels Season 5. Mm-hmm. All they did was shift from animation to live action. So, I mean, that's exactly what we want to do. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of when we do it. RoboForce, we now know, is a huge success. So we have some updates coming out about that soon. But I definitely, so to answer your question, a huge live action, like if you saw RoboForce, mm-hmm. imagine that live.
Yeah.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
I hate to rehash something we just saw, but I loved you hearing and watching you talk about what you learned shooting seasons 4 and 5 for The Toys That Made Us, and the Jack Nicholson story blows my mind. We were talking when you were telling, we were eavesdropping, we were talking, it's like it's the opposite of the Sean Connery Lord of the Rings mistake where he didn't take the back end points.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to me. What are some other things you learned while filming the season? Because I love that stuff. That stuff for me is it's history. It's just everything, and it's like such cool like dinner conversation and just really cool tidbit.
So when you ask that question, literally the first thing I think of is these two guys from Ghostbusters. It is I believe, and again, I know I should lower expectations, but I think it'll be the funniest episode of anything we have ever done, ever. Because, essentially, for anyone who doesn't know anything about Ghostbusters toys, there was a huge legal issue between who owned the rights to the term Ghostbusters. So there was actually a Ghostbusters TV show that came out before the movie. And when Sony wanted to make Ghostbusters, the movie, with Vecman and everybody, they couldn't really figure out a deal that worked for everybody. So there was a lot of legal gray area. There was a fair amount of lawsuits. So the original Ghostbusters, the one not with Dan Aykroyd, it was literally Ghostbusters. It had a dog, like a dog was the main character. It was they worked kind of in like a police station that went after ghosts. So back to these two guys, this situation could have been resolved with like getting lunch, having a beer, and just being like, hey, if you're cool, I'll be cool, and then we can make more money and have less stress and just enjoy our lives. But because these men were very insecure, these were the kind of guys that like 20 years later would have bought a Gen 1 Humvee, so the whole world knew they had like a big car and a small whatever. These two men just due to ego and insecurity, I mean, probably racked up a $10 million legal bill and just did craziness. But the best part of it is it's reflected in the toys. So you can see in the toys where like the Sony movie version of the figures, and I'm making this up, but like they couldn't have blue shirts because the contract gave the other company blue shirts. So you see, like, so whenever you look at those toy lines and you see something that doesn't make any sense, the answer usually would be, oh, they were maneuvering around a lawsuit. Yeah.
Did I say something about a gorilla that was supposed
There
to
was
be
a
in it?
gorilla, there was a talking gorilla, there was the dog. I mean, it was an absolute, had nothing to do with Sony's Ghostbusters, but it had the same name, and it was lunacy. And it affected the movie too, by the way. So the whole movie, they shot the movie with Ghostbusters, with the logo, with the name, with everything. And they didn't know if they'd have to reshoot everything because they didn't get the rights, because they were trying to deal with it while making the movie. And the only reason they were able to get the name was the guy who was at Sony, the guy who was at Warner Brothers blocking it, ended up going to Sony, and then he was like, well, now I'm here, I don't have to block it anymore. So that's literally how they solved it. Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be the craziest episode of anything we've ever made. Even crazier than He-Man.
Even crazier than
Yeah.
that. So what, have you always been into toys?
Yes.
What got you into this?
Listen, I don't know. But if I had to guess, if we put some sodium pentothal in my arm, I could talk to God, ask God, why did... My guess, this is purely a guess, I was an only child. I was one of those only children who didn't like being an only child. I hated it. I always wanted my mom, like, have another. So I just think I bonded with my toys more than maybe... Oh, the other thing, I don't play sports. I'm the worst, not to brag, I am the worst athlete you have ever met. So I couldn't do sports. I guarantee you I'm worse. I know it's not a
A
competition.
little humility would be real. Would go a
Yeah.
long way.
By the way, it's not even humility. It's just so obvious. I am literally the worst athlete who ever lived. So I couldn't do sports. I didn't have that. My mom was like the dominant force in my family, so we didn't watch sports. So I never got into the Yankees or the Mets or anything. And like I said, I was an only child. So what am I going to do? That's my theory. In college, junior year of college, I bought my first toy ever that I knew would go right on a shelf and I wouldn't pay for. And that was an
it started.
ATST from Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll tell you a fun fact. Toys That Made Us was greenlit in January of 2017. On that day, I had about 400 to 450 toys. Today, I have at least 5,000 toys. Yeah.
All on display?
All on display. That's a really good question. I don't buy stuff to buy stuff.
Right.
So if I'm buying something, it is to go on display. Like to me, not to be cheesy and not because there's just a new Superman movie out, but it really is my fortress of solitude. I can literally walk into the room, and if I had like an EKG and my blood pressure was here, over 15 minutes, you would see it coming down.
It's home.
So it's home, yeah. So there you go.
That's awesome.
I love that.
I don't know
I would
about
love
that.
to see your room.
My wallet doesn't. My
should
wallet
do an
doesn't
episode
think
on
it's.
your room.
But you know, you buy them over time, so it
It is.
doesn't
There you
feel
go.
so
Can I
bad.
call my wife and have her tell
Yes,
you that?
I
Yeah.
will. I tell my husband that all the time.
Yeah.
I buy him stuff over time.
Yeah, Well, but what my wife always retorts to that is, well, it's only worth something if you sell it.
True.
When are
No,
you
it's
selling it?
intrinsic.
Well, that value, yeah. What I always say to my wife, to get her to change the subject, I'm always like, well, when I'm dead, you sell it.
There
She's
you
like,
go.
all right.
Yeah.
What do you want for lunch?
We think our kids. That's
Yeah.
what our kids are going to
Yeah.
do with all of our stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I tell him.
But I will say this, because I shot this video yesterday. There was this company called Eagle Moss. I don't know if you
Yes,
ever
yes.
heard of them. British company, and they made the most beautiful Star Trek ship replicas. They were gorgeous.
And they were affordable too.
Yeah,
compared to
yeah,
others,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they were like 25 to like $80, depending on the size. And I have well over 200 of them. I mean, I have every Federation ship they made and then some. One day, I got some really, really good news at work. Like one of our shows was picked up for like 30 episodes or something. It had nothing to do with Star Trek or anything. So I called my wife and I was like, baby, good news. She's like, did Eagle Moss go bankrupt? Like that's how big a talking point it was in my
That's
family.
amazing.
So yesterday, I'm on the floor and an Enterprise model I paid $50 for was selling for $275, and the guy who was selling it, I was like, $275. He goes, that's cheap. You can go on eBay. They're $500 to $600. So I literally shot a video interviewing him, being like, so sir, if somebody bought this for $60 5 years ago, and now it's going for $275 to $600, would you say that was a good investment? He was like, well, yes, of course. And I was like, would you tell my wife that maybe there is value to this? And he goes, you're a genius, sir. Ma'am, your husband's a genius. And I'm like, you hear that, baby? I'm a genius. So I can give you that video if you want. But yes, hopefully somewhere in there I answered your question.
You did.
Okay, good.
You did. Thank you.
Oh. Your panels are done. So what were some of the surprises?
Ooh, surprises.
I know there were a
lot.
lot.
I'll tell you, the real surprise was in the Star Trek panel. We, so next year is the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, and our third wave of Star Trek toys is going to be the original cast in their famous uniforms. But there's a 2-pack, and we're not telling anybody yet what the 2-pack is, and we just had an image with question marks. There were 300, 400, 500 Trekkies in that room. There were people in that room I know who make me look like I've never heard of Star Trek. Nobody guessed. Not only did nobody guess what's in the 2-pack, no one came close.
Wow.
And I was very, very surprised about that. Wow. Yeah.
Anything else? I heard something about Polly Pocket or...
Polly Pocket, I wouldn't say there were any surprises, but I mean, and it's not a surprise anymore, but the reaction, you know, it's funny, like, I feel like Transformers and G.I. Joe and whatever, like they're such a loud fan base, but for many reasons, like Polly Pocket, they're not as vocal.
Yeah.
But they're there.
Yeah.
And it's like the fan base for Polly Pocket is old and deep and wide, and it's the reaction, because you know we screened footage today for the first time, like real footage from the show, and the reaction to it, I mean, there were people who had teared up, because one of the things that happened, unfortunately, we interviewed the creator, a guy named Chris Webb, and he died about 6 months after we interviewed him. So we actually have his last interview.
Wow.
So a lot of the people in the room are Polly Pocket fans, and they know, of course, that he passed away. So people were, I wouldn't say shocked, but people were crying because we got an interview of him. And it was my theory is, and believe it or not, this happens more than you would probably expect. My theory is he probably knew he was sick, and he said a lot of things that he wouldn't have said had he not been sick. And so we actually have a ton of what we call scoop that has never, ever, ever been made public before. Yeah, it was a while. I cried probably 4 or 5 times during the interview. So it was pretty powerful. Yeah, and we didn't show any of that footage today, because out of context, it would just bum out however many people were in the room.
Yeah, that's true. Well, there are a lot of younger generation too.
Yeah.
Like my daughters are in their early 20s, and when I told them I was coming to talk to you, we're like, oh, Polly Pocket. So I think the fan base is a little bit older, but I think the younger
Oh no,
one,
it's multi-generation.
yeah.
It's just like Transformers.
I feel like Gen Z is bringing a lot of the old school stuff.
Yeah,
back and
no,
into all that stuff.
absolutely. 100%, yeah.
And I saw you, speaking of lost icons, I follow you and I follow what you guys do with Icons Unleashed, Jim Shooter recently too, so that was a sad one to see as
And
well.
Michael Madsen.
I forgot about Michael Madsen.
Both of those were in a 3-week period. Yeah, both of them. We interviewed Michael Madsen and Jim Lee, and they both passed away in less than a week after we interviewed them.
Wow.
And so I wanted to dive into that a little bit. You said it's in production. What can we expect from that, and what are some things you learned from there? Because like I said, that's my
From
jam.
Icons?
Yeah,
From Icons
yeah,
Unleashed?
that's my jam. I love that stuff. I did it for like decades and years, and love talking to people about their past, and I'd love to hear in like higher level of like what fans can expect, because I love looking back on history, and you know, I saw Sean Young from Blade Runner. I love
we got
that
Sean,
stuff. Yeah.
Sean Young. We just shot Karen Allen yesterday. One of the things we're doing, did you see season 10, the Tom Cruise season?
No.
Yeah, so we did a whole, so season 10 was Tom Cruise, and we just did Tom Cruise movies, so we changed it up a little bit.
Wow.
best rated season of the first 10 seasons.
check that out.
So we're doing now a Quentin Tarantino season, a Schwarzenegger season, and a Harrison Ford season. And then we're also doing a Transformers season similar to the prior seasons.
God, I love that. You were talking about Madsen. Like, I remember going to the Reservoir Dogs anniversary,
Oh, wow.
and he was there. And so, a couple of years ago, luckily I was able to talk to him. But yeah, losing too many icons right now.
Yeah, and then Hulk Hogan a couple days ago. I mean, it's wild.
It's just
Yeah.
crazy.
That is. One more question. So, what is the oldest toy that you have featured?
Oh, that we featured in the show. Oh, that's a great question. I guess it would have to be G.I. Joe.
Really?
Because yeah, G.I. Joe started technically in the 40s.
Right.
Whenever I do these interviews, I usually miss one thing, and I was like, "Wah!" So I'm really, really trying. But I think G.I. Joe is absolutely the oldest toy. We own Garloo, so Garloo is a part of the Nacelle-verse. That's the oldest anything. That literally started like practically 1939.
Oh, wow.
But in Toys That Made Us, it is, I believe G.I. Joe is the correct answer.
Cool. My son was a G.I. Joe. That's what he used to say.
Oh.
G.I. Joe.
You
He's
never
40 now. He still has his G.I.
You never
Joes.
forget that stuff, do you?
He still says G.I. Joe. Probably.
Yeah, I tease him about it all the time. So, but thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Is there a most valuable toy that you remember that comes to mind that you've had on the show?
Within reason, the most valuable thing is that Jack Nicholson prototype.
Wow.
We had some, the Takara, the stuff we shot in Japan at Takara headquarters was, worth millions. They have them in like Tupperware containers in the basement. It's like the weirdest thing I've ever seen. That stuff, not to be cliched, that stuff should literally be in a museum.
Yes.
Museum people would pay $50 a ticket to get into. And it's in their basement, like wrapped in like napkins. But anyway, yeah, those would be it. Yeah.
Yeah.